What is Sunfair Dry Lake? The expansive chunk of open desert sits just northeast of Joshua Tree, and depending on who you ask, the dry lake can be a lot of things. If you ask Google, Sunfair is a dispersed camper's paradise. Locals may know it a little different, as its proximity to neighborhoods means many people use it to do a little off-roading. Sunfair is also a street that leads right off Highway 62 and into the open desert and off into the hills that butt up against Sunfair, where you can often hear gunshots from target shooters taking advantage of the relative isolation. Guns, motorcycles, campers, and compounds can certainly give any area a reputation, and Sunfair has earned one as the Wild West, where you can do just about anything without much fear of anyone coming over and ruining your fun. Sunfair is designated as BLM land, a small sliver of the 15 million acres that the Bureau of Land Management oversees here in California. It's designated as mixed use, similar to areas north of Joshua Tree like Soggy Dry Lake and Johnson Valley OHV area. That mixed use comes with some regulations which, in theory, are enforced by the BLM. However, unlike Johnson Valley, Sunfair Dry Lake is located incredibly close to Joshua Tree National Park, where campsites fill up quickly during most seasons. People hoping to camp in the desert are then pushed to find alternative spots like Sunfair Dry Lake. It's a practice not only pushed by those videos on YouTube, but the National Park website itself. On a page called Camping Outside of the Park, the National Park Service has a map that points to the area of Sunfair that's labeled BLM Dispersed Camping Area and points people to the BLM's website for rules about camping. Campers heading out to Sunfair will certainly find space to camp, but they'll also find themselves sharing the dry lake bed with more long-term residents. People like Dan, who I met sitting outside of his minivan on the edge of the dry lake.
Well, the weekends typically like Friday or Saturday, people come out with their quads, their trailers, and it gets pretty busy. I don't see anything wild, like wild parties, drunkenness, and all that kind of stuff. But then I'm kind of to myself, so.
Dan's been camping on Sunfair for about 4 months on and off, and people looking for privacy and space can certainly find it on the dry lake. However, Sunfair has also been in the news recently, as a man who went missing on April 17th was found dead on Sunfair Dry Lake in his RV. The search for Daniel Lindell started at the national park, where the sheriffs say the campgrounds and surrounding areas were checked for the RV, but to no avail. 11 days later, the sheriff's office received a tip that Lindell's motorhome was on Sunfair Dry Lake, where he appeared to have died from natural causes. Deputy Chris Jones out of the Morongo Basin Station says that the BLM does do patrols on Sunfair, and the sheriff's office even uses the area for OHV search training due to the varied landscape. Whatever Sunfair can be characterized as, it sounds like some changes could be coming to the area. When the topic of alternative camping in Sunfair Dry Lake came up on last Friday's Up Close show with Gary Daigneault, 3rd District Supervisor Don Rao had this to say about enforcement on the dry lake.
They know Mark Stamer is the new field manager out in Barstow. He comes down to a monthly coffee that I host, and he's engaged, and we've shared. Captain Warwick is great in communicating. There's some joint enforcement efforts there, so he is aware.
For a longer version of this story and links to information about Sunfair Dry Lake, you can see this story on Z107.7fm.com. And that's your local news. You can hear local news 7 times a day, 7 days a week at 7, 8, 9, noon, 4, 5, and 6. Reporting for the Morongo Basin News Leader, I'm Robert Hayden.